Nizi, and welcome again to Washington. President Biden canceled his May trip to Australia because of debt ceiling talks in Congress to avoid a first ever default here in the U.S. More recently, congressional action has stalled as House Republicans try to pick a speaker. However, it does appear, since we've been out here, that the House has elected a Congressman, Mike Johnson from Louisiana, to that role. But are you worried that the gridlock in Washington will hold up the transfer of nuclear-powered subs to Australia as part of the AUKUS agreement? And are you concerned more broadly that the dysfunction makes the U.S. Less reliable partner?
I regard the United States as a very reliable partner, and I regard the relationship that I have with the President as second to none of the relationships that I have around the world, or indeed domestically for that matter. It's a relationship of trust, and I think this visit symbolises that. This is the 9th visit that I've had with President Biden. I got to meet President Biden when he was Vice President Biden just next door here some years ago. And I'm very confident in the discussions that I've had with Democrats and Republicans that there is very broad support for the AUKUS arrangements and that there will be support for the legislation going forward. And I think that would be a very good thing. It is in the interests of Australia, but it's also in the interests of the United States. And everyone that I have spoken to, similarly in the United Kingdom, across the political spectrum, are all supportive of the AUKUS arrangements. We in Australia have managed to get it so we get one question each. So, yeah, good try. But Channel 10 Australia.
Get him, Jojo.
President Biden, just staying with AUKUS. AUKUS is in many ways your creation. It's Australia's largest ever defence deal, and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has gone all in. Can you give a personal guarantee that you can get all the necessary legislation through Congress and lock in this deal, essentially future-proofing it, before the end of this presidential term?
Do you know anyone in elective office can give a personal guarantee that happens?
Well, we'd like you to try.
No, I'm going to try, and I believe it will get done. Look, last week we requested $3.4 billion in supplemental funds to boost submarine production and maintenance to meet U.S. needs and also support AUKUS. Australia is making a significant investment in the United States in its ability to produce submarines as part of this deal. And more importantly, it's important that Congress move quickly. And the fact is that I'm confident that we can get this done because you remember when we put the deal together, the response of Democrats and Republicans in the United States, the response around the free world was this is a very, very good thing, a very good thing. So the question is not if, but when. And Jojo told us that we got a new speaker, or likely have a new speaker. I hope that's true, because we have to get moving. We have to get moving, and so I am confident that we are going to be able to get the money for AUKUS because it's overwhelmingly in our interest. When I was asked, when we put together the deal, I was asked by Xi Jinping, were we just trying to surround China? I said, no, we're not surrounding China. We're just making sure that the sea lanes remain open. He doesn't unilaterally be able to change the rules of the road in terms of what constitutes international airspace and water space, et cetera. And so that's what this is all about. It's about making sure we have a close, and it's in addition to the fact that we put together the Quad, which they didn't like. The Quad is a very important piece as well. It's about maintaining stability in the Taiwan Strait, the Indian Ocean, that whole area. And I think it's going to increase the prospects for long-term peace rather than anything else. Oh, I get that. I get that. Okay. PBS, Ms. Lopez.
Mr. President, thank you. If I may, I have a breaking news question and then an Israel one. First, after 22 days, House Republicans just elected Mike Johnson of Louisiana as the Speaker of the House. Johnson advocated conspiracy theories about voting machines and a rigged election in 2020. He encouraged his colleagues to join a lawsuit to invalidate the results of 4 states. So if you win re-election in 2024, are you worried that a Speaker Johnson would again attempt to overturn the election?
No,
Why not?
because he can't. Look, just like I was not worried that the last guy would be able to overturn the election. They had about 60 lawsuits and all the way to the Supreme Court, and every time they lost. I understand the Constitution.
And if I may very quickly, in the 18 days since Hamas killed 1,400 Israelis, the Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry says Israeli forces have killed over 6,000 Palestinians, including 2,700 children. You've previously asked Netanyahu to minimize civilian casualties. Do these numbers say to you that he is ignoring that message?
What they say to me is I have no notion that the Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed. I'm sure innocents have been killed, and it's the price of waging a war. I think we should be incredibly careful. I think not we, the Israelis should be incredibly careful to be sure that they're focusing on going after the folks that are propagating this war against Israel. And it's against their interest when that doesn't happen. But I have no confidence in the number that the Palestinians are using.
Thank you, Mr. President. Prime Minister Albanese, you're traveling to China early next month. President Biden has said China should expect, quote, extreme competition from the United States. Do you support extreme competition with China, and what does that look like for you?
Well, we have strategic competition in our region. That's a fact that we are living with. The relationship with China is one where the principle that I bring to it is to cooperate where we can, disagree where we must, but engage in our national interest. It is in Australia's interests as well as China, but I believe in the global interest for us to have a relationship where there is dialogue. And hence I welcome the fact that I have been invited to China. I'll be travelling at the same time as we will commemorate 50 years since the first visit by an Australian Prime Minister, Gough Whitlam, to China in a short period of time now. And I think that is a positive thing. It is good that various senior representatives in the US administration have had meetings with their Chinese counterparts in recent times, because dialogue is always a good thing. Through dialogue comes understanding and comes a diffusion of tension. We want a peaceful and secure region, but we want one as well that's based upon the rule of law and where national sovereignty, including issues such as the South China Sea and the right of passage in that important waterway there, the East China Sea, the Taiwan Straits, is respected. And that is Australia's position. We cooperate very much with the United States on those matters and on others, but I look forward to a constructive dialogue when I visit Shanghai and Beijing.
Context of extreme competition was not conflict. Read the whole paragraph. I talked about we're going to compete with China on every way according to the international rules, economically, politically, and other ways, but I'm not looking for conflict.
Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff Chambers from The Australian. President Biden, as mentioned, Prime Minister Albanese flies to Beijing next Saturday to meet the Chinese President and Premier. Your administration has raised deep concerns over a very long period of time about the Chinese Communist government's aggressive coercion and intimidation tactics, maritime claims in the South China Sea, as we've seen with the situation with the Philippines, state-sponsored cyber attacks. Last week, we heard from the spy chiefs talking about theft of intellectual property on an industrial scale and obviously human rights abuses. What do you make of China's re-engagement with Australia? Can Australia trust Beijing, and can Australia do business with China?
Trust but verify is the phrase. And look, China is having their own internal and external difficulties right now. China's economic growth is stagnant compared to what it was. China has engaged in activities that Russia and many other activities that others have engaged in terms of intimidation and dealing with other countries. But the fact is that I have met with Xi Jinping more than any other world leader has. I've had over 68 hours of private meetings, he and I, with simultaneous interpreters, starting back when I was vice president, because it wasn't appropriate for a president of the United States to be meeting with the vice president. So I traveled 17,000 miles with him. And I've subsequently, in addition to that 68 hours, I've also had another, they tell me they keep meticulous contact, another, I think, 12, 15 hours of discussions, just he and I. And I think that he is realizing that there are, for example, his Belt and Road Initiative. Well, we're going to compete on that, and we're doing it a different way. The Belt and Road Initiative has ended up debt in a noose for most of the people who have signed on. We are working with our G7 partners to provide infrastructure for the very nations that he's trying to deal with. We want to, for example, at the G20, we were able to act on a proposal I had to build a railroad all the way from Riyadh, all the way through the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Israel, up through Greece, and then across not the railroad, but pipeline across the Mediterranean up into Europe. Pardon me?
You're the reliable partner in terms of when you say you're going to deliver something, the US and its partners delivering.
I hope, not just me, I hope the United States is a reliable partner when we act. But it wasn't just the United States that agreed on that. Because look, even to this day, when my discussions with the Saudis and the Crown Prince was he wants to see a reconciliation take place. It's overwhelmingly in his interest. It's in Saudi's interest. It's the idea that you'd have the nations of the Middle East cooperating economically and politically changes the dynamic significantly. And so I just think that it is it's something that it's in everyone's interest, including long-term in China's interest.
Prime Minister as well. Have you had a chance to speak to Benjamin Netanyahu? I know there's been efforts made. Obviously, the President was there in Israel last week. Are you still endeavouring to speak to the Israeli Prime Minister?
I am. I have spoken with the Israeli ambassador on a number of occasions. We continue to, we understand that obviously Mr. Netanyahu has pressures on, which at the top of the list is not the discussion with the Australian Prime Minister. We understand the pressures which are there, but we have a request for a calling. Thank you.
Thank you.